And we're back, and now we're joined with a special guest, Mr. Ian Seidler. He was a past chapter president and current chapter counselor. Ian, how are you doing, sir?
I am doing phenomenal today, Austin. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's the middle of the week for us here to kind of date when we're recording this, and I'm ready for the week to be done because it's already been super long. So, although I also had Monday off, so I guess I can't really complain.
You're only 2 days in, man. Come on, Dom and I are 3.
Yeah, I know, but it's still been rough. It's been a long week.
Yeah, you had Martin Luther King Jr. or President's Day off. Sorry, one of these days off in one of these months. I don't know. I get these like January, February, March holidays mixed up.
I mean, that's fair. I feel like has it felt the same with you guys? Like February feels like it's going like so fast. Like next week is already the back end week of it.
My entire life has been going by so fast ever since I graduated. It's so weird. Like I think I was talking to Kirby about this when we met up for our chapter counselor transition. But I'm like, dude, it's been 4 months since I graduated, and I feel like I just went to bed and left Platteville the other day.
That's adulthood for you.
Yeah.
That'll do it. But so obviously, like Ian, you've been on the podcast before, but you were on when you were an undergrad and when you were there as a Ruck scholar. But now we've brought you on for an entirely different thing because, like I said at the beginning, like you're starting a new role with the chapter, and we kind of want to talk about it. Before we go into all that, though, we want to talk about like your roots and stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your background, how you got started with SIGEP, that sort of stuff.
For sure. So my history with SIGEP starts way before I was in college because, as many people know, in high school I played pinball a lot. I've toned down a lot since then, but that was kind of like my main hobby when I was in high school. And a SIGEP alumni, Will Michaels, who's currently on the AVC, he was in the Madison area, and he also went to a lot of the tournaments I went to and a lot of the league nights as well. So when it came time for me to go to college, we were chatting one night, I think in like 2018, and I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about going to Platteville. You just graduated, what do you think? And he's like, oh yeah, that's a very good school, definitely not being biased whatsoever. And then when he found out I applied for BMS, that was kind of signed, sealed, and delivered right there. Austin cold called me while I was mowing the lawn on my riding lawnmower, and for the schedule a BMS interview. And then I was bid September, waited a long time. I was one of the last in my class to join. And I have not looked back since. In my time as an undergraduate, I was on the standards board. I was chaplain on many committees. As Austin said, I was chapter president for a year. Very thankful to be chapter president for a year. I've been to Conclave twice, been to CLA more times than I can count. And originally, after I graduated, I was just going to be on the AVC as a committee position. But when this position opened up and I was soon to be appointed, when Jerry Baker reached out to me, I said, yeah, this is a once in a lifetime position, and I think it's one that I can make a big difference in. So that's the really condensed 4 years of college.
I know you went really fast on that. I gotta say, like your BMS interview was like one of the most fun because we just if I recall, we went to like a bowling alley, right? You, me, and Will.
Yep. We went to a bowling alley that had pinball games, and I was a little crunched for time. Because you guys asked afterwards if I wanted to play pinball, and if I wasn't crunched for time, I would have spent like hours there.
Yeah, so it was very I've been to when I did BMS interviews, like I would do them in the most random places, and that definitely was one of the more fun ones, location wise at least.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you went through a lot of accolades there, SIGEP's your life. You left off the Ruck Scholar stuff.
Yeah, I was just, how could I forget that one? I got the book somewhere too.
That one's important too, man. That one's important too. But let's talk about your let's talk about your presidency a bit, because you were in that I don't know if the transition term is the right kind of one, but we were coming off of the group that won the first Buck Cup, and then you were right there kind of getting ready and setting the steps for our second one, essentially. You were the one that kind of put all that stuff into place. So talk a little bit about your presidential term, the kind of time that was going on in the chapter, and then that kind of stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. So Every year that I was in the chapter, we were technically a Buchanan Cup winning chapter at that point, because 2019 to 2020, that was the first year of our first cup. And the whole reason I joined, I left this out, but the whole reason I joined is um, almost every single person I talked to within SIGEP at Wisconsin Theta was someone I could see as a role model, right? Austin, Will, Dom, John, Oakley, just to name a few. And I saw that this was a great avenue for me to not only get connections but also just to better myself. Period. So that was the big reason I joined, and that's why I ended up pursuing opportunities like standards board, chaplain, and eventually president, was because it's all experience that not only A, I can give back to the chapter, but B, I can learn from it and hopefully utilize those skills, give those skills back to the chapter, um, either later in my collegiate career or now that I'm an alumni. So um, when I was chaplain, that was kind of the year that we won our first Buchanan Cup. So I had seen a lot of role models come through and kind of show me how to build a Buchanan Cup winning chapter. And it's not something that can be repeated easily because you can't follow the exact same steps. So when I came back from conclave, Nationals gave us a review sheet of essentially every area of chapter operations, and they graded us and gave us feedback based on a Buchanan Cup application. And that was a huge part of my executive board, our figuring out our focus areas, right? And one of the biggest ones for us was recruitment, but we also had a long way to go for MemDev, for volunteer relations, and academics too. So those were the main areas that we as an executive board came to agree upon, that we have a lot of room to grow. Let's shoot for the moon and see what happens. A great example of that is when I came back from Ruck, one of the chapters, I can't recall who it was, but one of the chapters had the chancellor come in just to talk to the chapter and say, like, hey, here's what the university's doing right now. Here's what you can do to help us. And the chancellor wasn't officially a faculty fellow. And on the flight back, as I landed in Madison, I called Sean McGrath and we talked for a little bit about Ruck and whatnot. I'm like, hey, I think with this new chancellor, I think we should set up a meeting, right? You've got connections with her, and maybe we can get her to be a faculty fellow. Long story short, she comes to our meetings usually once or twice a semester now and educates our brothers on wellness, right? That's an example of just a wild goal we had, or shooting for the moon and actually nailing it with like volunteers. So fast forward a year, after my term, I ended up chairing the Buchanan Cup committee. So I was the individual in charge of making sure that it got filled out, allocating who filled out what. And there are so many highlights in my collegiate career. It's hard for me to nail one as one of my favorite moments in college. But when I reviewed that Buchanan Cup application for the last time, I was so proud of every single member of Sigma Phi Epsilon, not only at that point, but for years behind, for those that kind of built the foundation to where we can stand on, but also for the current members and the executives for really taking it as far as we possibly could in that year. And I don't have words to describe when we were called at San Antonio to receive our second Buck Cup, and Jace went up and received it. Top 10 moments of my life, I'll guarantee you. I'm not going to say which moments just because that might get some people that I know and love angry, but don't worry about it. So, and then after that, it was kind of talking with the incoming executives about what worked for me and making sure that they had resources and knew that I was available. So, yeah, a lot of words.
So diving a little bit deeper into that, do you want to talk a bit more about your presidential term then?
Yeah, sure. I've kind of skipped that over. So, as I kind of stated earlier, we were handed a pretty good deck of cards from the start. A lot of the executives before us had already started a precedence of taking their executive role and making it their own, but also leaving it in a better spot than they started. And that became our entire philosophy of we want to leave a chapter to this next generation that is better than when we first received it. We want to be better men. We want the people in front of us who will eventually take our spots to be better men than we are right now. And that's not because we're not trying hard enough. It's because they will have the resources to take this chapter farther than we were. So one of I think the biggest successes of my presidential term was our goal sheet management. I was meticulous on the goals we set when we and first and probably like third time that we met as an executive board. We drew out goals for not only the positions but for the chapter as a whole, right? And these were goals that it was not role specific. These were goals that everyone on the executive board, it was our duty to fulfill it. It doesn't matter if it's make sure that all brothers are above a 3.0 or make sure the composite GPA is 3.5. That's not just chaplain, that's not just SLC, that's everyone. So we had cross communication on our executive board that the likes of which I've never seen or heard at that point, to where we would get people like the chaplain helping out with finance. You'd get people like me. I was on every single committee, and I wasn't really heavily involved with every committee, more as I was just kind of suggesting like, oh, hey, this person may be nice to help you plan this event or whatnot. But maintaining that goal sheet was a great way to set a vision in the beginning of, all right, at the end of when we're old and when we're out of here, this is what we're going to leave behind. This is what we're going to accomplish this semester. And some of those things were like have the highest GPA on campus, recruit 2 new faculty fellows, have so many volunteer hours, right? And even if we didn't accomplish some of them, we still got relatively close. And others we just blew out of the water, and sometimes we were even surprised with how far they went. But the key was we didn't just set them and then check in on them like at the semester. We checked in with our goals probably once every 2 weeks, and we modified them if needed at that 2 week period. So they were constantly evolving. We weren't so much, it's not so much changing the goalposts as it is just reevaluating our situations. But since we went over our goals as an executive board, that meant that we all had kind of the shared vision of where we wanted to take the chapter, and everyone gave whatever time and talent they could to help us reach it. So that was, I think, a really one of the highlights of my presidential term, and why I think we were, in my humble opinion, very successful.
Yeah, I want to. I mean, I want to emphasize like how important doing those like goal reevaluations and like how meticulous you guys tracked them, because like I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast before, but like everything that we've been told about like the Buck Cup process and stuff too, like everyone was like getting that second one was always one of the hardest ones to get, because you have to build off of all the success that you had on that first one. And so, to like you had said, like you guys had a good foundation of stuff that was already being done that we had just gotten appraised on, and then to take it to the next level and target those specific areas that we were working on, like I mean, like I said, like you set the groundwork for that stuff, so that when we got around to the application, we're able to like say and really show like, oh yeah, this is what it looks like, this is how it all happened.
Yeah. I'll add one more thing too, of like one of the biggest driving factors of my presidency too was when we received our first Buchanan Cup. Tom Barton was with us and he celebrated with us, but when we left and went to his suite for a little bit to celebrate, he told me that the first one's easy, the second one is the hardest one, and that to me felt like a challenge. It we saw we attained success in the eyes of getting a Buchanan Cup, but the second one was an even tougher mountain to climb, because you're already here, you need to get to here, but you have a long way that you can fall. So that really motivated myself, and I think a lot of the other executives will agree that motivated them too. Of we there's already a standard of excellence, but we need to elevate it, and that is extremely difficult without getting complacent. So you brought that up, Austin. I just want to kind of elaborate on that.
For sure. So you kind of, I mean, obviously, like you kind of went through your background like pretty fast, but let's talk about graduation, and kind of how you got involved with the AVC, like what those first kind of steps were, because um, I would say, like, in the past we haven't, as the alumni corporation, like, haven't been the best about getting everybody involved right away and getting them started on being involved in somewhat of a way. And I think, like, over the last couple of years we've been a little bit better about that, and you were one of the people that kind of we were able to get in right away and start getting involved with stuff and taking stuff in your own direction. So talk to us about a little bit about that, like what kind of made you want to do the role that you ended up taking, and then some of the stuff that you did with that before you transitioned to what you're doing now.
Well, I was very fortunate in that Jeremy Baker sponsored my entire graduating class for 1 year of AVC dues. Myself and Sean had already kind of talked about what we wanted to do, and for me personally, right, my life was going through a pretty big change. Number one, graduation. Number two, a lot of responsibilities are dropping off. Number three, I'm moving to a new house. Number four, I'm starting a new job, and I wasn't quite ready at when I first graduated and kind of the months after. I wasn't really sure if I wanted a very intense job like running to be a trustee. In fact, I was nominated to be a trustee, but I declined because at the time I was like, I don't know if I can commit to this, right? I don't know what my hobbies are going to be. Like right now, I coach mock trial at a high school level. I curl. I still go to pinball tournaments, now and then, and I didn't know any of that. I didn't know what my life was going to be like a month out from college. So Jurgis ended up making this survey of, hey, what interests you the most? And I had a few things that I checked off, like, yeah, I do this, but what he thought the most important one to fill was scholarship and awards. And I agreed with him because we the AVC has had a really good foundation from Eugene Worley, but we have a lot of freedom to grow that position. So I took up that position, and I made a cabinet with Jeff Pingle, Dawson Van Winkle, and Carter Forseth kind of as an undergraduate representative. And we've already given out over $400 for CLA scholarships. We've enabled two brothers who would not have been able to go to CLA without financial aid. They were able to go this last, that was only a couple weeks ago. Geez. We're going to sponsor people when they go to Ruck, but we're continuing the awards that we've done before. So Volunteer of the Year for the AVC, but we're bringing back a few, and we're starting a couple new ones. So we're bringing back the Lee Zastro Scholarship, and we thankfully received enough money to fund that for 5 years. So that's a lot of these applications should be coming out. So if you're on the AVC and you're listening to this, please fill any out that you feel you have someone to nominate for. Appreciate it. We have some awards that I'm not going to reveal because they're going to be a secret to the AVC. Only the undergrads will know about it, and vice versa too. But probably the award that I'm most excited for is the Bob McCune Exemplary Service Award. This is, for those of you that went to Platteville, this is going to be the AVC's Dean Linden Award. So it's going to be awarded every 5 years to one alumni who has gone above and beyond what is called for not only their positions, but also for being an alumni. The two people that have won it are Bob McCune and Tom Barton. So what we're planning on doing is we're planning on getting a plaque similar to the Dean Linden Award at Platteville. And we're going to hopefully have room in our new SLC when our house is built to hang them up. So that way it's kind of like a commemorative and every 5 years thing. So that's going to be a very special award. And I was really enjoying running it, right? It was pretty laid back. We had it's some planning, but a lot of it is just, an hour discussion once a month of what we're going to do. And having Jeff and Dawson and Carter on there is really nice because we know each other very well and we all have different ideas of what we want to award. So we were able to come to a pretty good consensus of, at least this year, what we wanted to do. We kind of set our limits of this is what we're going to do. If we want to expand it later, maybe we could go there. So when I first took up this role and after the first couple meetings, I'm like, yeah, I could do this for a couple of years. This is a pretty good spot, right? I like giving money back to the undergrads, and I like awarding alumni who deserve to be recognized. And then November 8th, Jeremy Baker cold messaged me on Messenger while I was at work, and said, "Hey, Nicholas Kirby is going to step down as chapter counselor. As the um, as the district governor, I appoint the chapter counselor, and a few names were thrown around, but we want you to do it." And at first, I was pretty apprehensive. Even though I was on the executive board for 2 years, the exact role of chapter counselor, I didn't quite get. Right, I knew that they were a liaison between us and the alumni, but I didn't know what exactly was required, um, especially beyond just going to meetings and whatnot. So, at first, I was a little apprehensive because the scholarship and awards committee was usually about 2 hours a month, which isn't a lot, and chapter counselor would be at minimum 2 hours a week. So at first I was a little apprehensive, but then as I kind of sat back and thought about it, um, I, I took a look at the position, and after reading for a little bit, I thought I could put my own little spin on this position and really make it something, or really take it to a new level. Kirby was a fantastic chapter counselor. He provided guidance when the executive board needed it. And I felt like I could fill his shoes, but then also make the position my own. And just like scholarship and awards, that was a big draw to me of there's ideas that I already have and things that I want to do, and I'll be able to directly see my actions like with the undergraduates. For example, this last weekend I went, actually, no, scratch that. Yesterday, I went to Platteville and held a CLA decomp. I bought them all the guys that went to CLA pizza, and we just sat around and talked about CLA for an hour and a half. But before that, I held an academic event to any brothers that wanted to show up, and out of 43 brothers, 20 showed up, and they all said they took something away. They were all very engaged, and it it felt really nice because I put a lot of effort into this, and I'm volunteering my time, and I can directly see that it's going to benefit these guys. Um, and I perceived that back in November when Baker first asked me. So again, I took about a month, same way with my bid, and I told him, "Yep, I'll do it." Especially since CLA this year there was specifically a chapter counselor track. Um, so I got a lot of great advice for like how to structure transition retreat, what is a good chapter counselor, what can I do to make the best use of my time, but also the undergraduates' time, right? Both of our time is valuable here. Um, and I took a lot of the CLA. I think it was probably the most beneficial CLA I've ever been to. And I've enjoyed it ever since.
Yeah, I mean, before we continue going, like, we have to give Nick Kirby his flowers. I mean, this man has been in the position for a while. I don't know the exact number, but I
think over a decade.
That's what I was gonna say. It's got to be close to
2012, something like that.
Yeah, so like over a decade. And he was putting in a lot of work. Like in the sense that we brought Barney on in the back end of it. Like I think he knew he was kind of getting to a point where he's ready to let somebody step in. And honestly, I couldn't think of anybody better. But you to kind of take that in. Like it's impressive. I'm curious who if we not just us but in general, if there's ever been this young of a chapter counselor stepping into a role. I don't know if that's something that's been revealed to you, but I'd be curious to see that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, you're probably one of the better fits. You're right at that perfect age where it's you still know a lot of the guys that are in the chapter, and
that's very helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I can imagine. But then a bunch of us that are working on the AVC side of things as well. I'm glad that you mentioned your AVC trustee nomination, because I remember when I sent that to you and you responded back, I was so upset.
I had plans that I could not tell you at that time. No, I had no idea. I could tell that you were a little sad, Austin, but I was like, Sean ended up winning that position, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he won. Yeah, he ended up winning it, and again, Sean. I think I nominated Sean as well, to be honest. But we were, I was just trying to get some other young guys on the board because, in how you're being the chapter counselor and know a lot of the guys, it's important that we have alumni and trustees that also know a lot of those younger guys to help facilitate those conversations.
For sure.
So that was the importance of getting those people on there. But yeah, so I mean, like you kind of highlighted like how when the discussions kind of started for this, and you kind of touched on it, but talk to us like what specifically like does the chapter counselor kind of do? Because like you kind of said, like that role is kind of different and somewhat vague at the same time, but different between person to person, year to year. Talk to us about like the kind of overarching thing, especially for people that haven't ever been in the chapter.
Best way I can describe chapter counselor as I see it right now is I'm kind of the Swiss Army knife for the first Swiss Army knife for the chapter. And what I mean by that is sometimes I'm a mentor, sometimes I'm directly mentoring not only the president but other positions. If they have direct questions or if they need a quick answer, right, I'm there at executive meetings and I can ask. I can be a historian. So at chapter meetings, right, if they have a question about something historic or why the bylaws are a certain way, I can help out there. By that extension, I'm another voice of kind of age, but I'm not going to say wisdom because I'm not going to associate myself with wisdom. But sometimes it's just nice to hear another voice, especially if a bylaw change is coming through, to think about different perspectives. Sometimes I play devil's advocate and make sure that if the chapter's moving forward with a decision, to point out like, have you guys thought about this? Making sure that their decisions are, completely thought through. But a lot of what I do is passive, so asking questions rather than telling. Stating, hey, here's why things were done, but I'm not going to say anything about how you guys want to do it. Unless I'm directly asked. So it's in a sense, it's kind of a more hands-off mentorship position, but that's traditionally what's chapter counselor has been. But what I'm kind of taking on in this chapter counselor role is I want to be a little bit more involved and present with the undergrads. So I'm not just showing up at executive board meetings and chapter meetings. I'm showing up in town randomly, not just when other alumni are going to be there, and showing up to a couple of events, showing up to committee meetings, and just making my presence kind of known. Another thing I'm doing is I did this at CLA and I got great feedback from it, so I'll continue to do it. But I'm going to do interviews with the executive board probably 3 times: February, August, and then as they're leaving. Just kind of keeping in with number one, are you having fun? Do you feel supported? What's good? What's bad? How's your chapter leadership going? Do you need assistance? How's the AVC going with you? And some position specific requirements. And the feedback I got from that is, I've been president. I've been in SIGEP for 4 years. I was on the executive board twice. So I've seen a thing or two, and I understand every position. So it's nice this is what I was told. It was nice to have someone who's kind of seen a lot and understands at least a good chunk of the position to ask me the questions that really no one else may ask, or I may have no one else to talk to. And it's nice just to see that I care about these guys, right? Their success is what makes me happy. And yeah, so from that perspective, it's a little bit more active. But the last bullet point I'll say is, if something looks like it's going to go wrong or could be detrimental, that is when I should step in and be like, no, you guys should not do this. If you want a second alumni opinion, I'll go get one. But kind of another line of defense in that scenario, to prevent an event being planned that could have a severe risk that no one really knows about or could think about. That's what I would be there for. But finally, I said that's the last point, but I forgot. I am a direct liaison between the chapter and the AVC if needed. So a lot of the executives can go directly to the AVC. They can talk to their mentors. They can talk to the AVC president. But if there's something that they want me to feel out for or have a general discussion with the chapter president, or if they're having communication problems or anything like that, and they may not want to directly go to the AVC, that's where I can come in and say like, hey, can you talk to Austin about what he thinks about our social media page? And because our VP of comms, Andy, he may be super busy at a week and he wants feedback as soon as possible. I spend the time right away. I message Austin and say, hey, you got a second to chat, and we just kind of have that, and then I can report back to Andy. So I'm essentially a Swiss Army knife at the chapter's disposal. Not disposal, at their use. That's a good word.
Well, how do you want to make this Swiss Army knife better?
Well, it started out for me by adding more what do you call them? More tools, more attachments. I don't know, more things that you flip out, whatever they're called. Adding more ways for me to assist the chapter. So like this academic development event, right? The executive board is going to see me all the time, but the general chapter will not. And that's usually the general chapter does not. And that is one thing I'm trying to fix. So that way, everyone in the chapter, at least they know my name, and at least I've had a conversation with them. So that way, when it comes time for them to be executives or higher up in the chapter, then they'll know me a little bit. We'll have a relationship, and we can really hit the ground running with their positions and also their leadership skills and their developmental skills. It also gives me a chance to kind of see everyone in the chapter and interact with brothers who otherwise I wouldn't interact if I was just purely online and not talking to. So that's a great tool. I've already had a couple brothers who are not in the executive board. Like I had a brother at my academic development night. Geez, asked me for advice with a math teacher that's really not the best, and he didn't really know what to do. And I'm like, hey, go talk to the department chair if this professor isn't really grading you fairly or whatever not. I've had a couple executives just run ideas by me before they ran it by the executive board. I've had brothers, again, not on the executive board, come to me with bylaw revisions and say, hey, what do you think of this? Should I present this to the exec board? Are there changes you should make? And I'm really enjoying that so far, because now I'm not, like I said, I'm not only interacting with the executives, but I'm getting interactions from the general chapter. And the name of this position is chapter counselor, right? Not just the executive board chapter, the executive board counselor or something similar. So I should be there for the entire chapter. Now, 43 guys is a lot, and I may not be able to, if everyone's asking me something, I may not be able to help everyone, but at least starting to branch out from the executive board, right? That's adding I don't know, it's adding a saw to the Swiss Army knife, right? Something that everyone in the chapter can use. But that's just one example of how I tend to improve the Swiss Army knife, since we're keeping on with it. I just noticed I'm wearing a red sweatshirt too, so I guess this metaphor is really working out now. But yeah.
I just need the giant plus somewhere.
I got a W. Is that good enough?
W for win. We got this.
Yeah, I like it. Cool. Well, so now you're kind of like, we talked about the chapter counselor role, kind of what you're doing with it, the stuff you're looking to do with it. Talk to us just a little bit about the chapter. I mean, I think we did a chapter update on our last episode, but there's been some stuff that's changed since then, and they got back from CLA and all this stuff. So, just give us a little talk about the chapter. Tell us how things are going, what's looking like this semester.
Perfect.
All their.
Well, I'm really glad I did those
right now.
Now I'm really glad I did those one-on-ones, because besides helping out the undergrads with those one-on-ones and kind of asking them questions, it also allows me to kind of get context into how their executive board is going, how their relationships are with other execs, with their president. So it really helps me kind of be there with them and understand the environment around them. Overall, this year's executive board is younger than previous years. There are 2 freshmen on the board, I believe. Ty, VP of programming, and then our VP of recruitment, Nate, is also a freshman. Nate ended up picking the position up from a special election, and in my interview, my first question is, are you having fun? So keep in mind, Nate, this is his second semester on campus, second semester in SIGEP. He just was special elected this role, and he essentially told me that this is what he wanted out of college, right? he knows it's only been a couple months, but he knows that being VPR of SIGEP as a freshman is what he wants out of college. He likes the challenge. He likes working with other people. He's really excited to develop his leadership skills, and that really just motivates me as chapter counselor to do more. But a common theme is that everyone on the executive board, although it may be younger than usual, everyone is extremely driven to succeed. They're extremely motivated in their positions. They're having fun. They want to develop their leadership. They enjoy seeing the chapter develop. They enjoy seeing others on the executive board develop. And they all have a lot of common shared goals like my board did. But they have energy like I have never seen. There are some members of the executive board that are flying at 1,000 miles per hour in a good way, not flying too fast. And when I asked them about burnout, most of them said, "Nope, can't be me. Can't be me. I can't get enough of SIGEP." And I think that's what the chapter needs right now, because there's a lot of pilots going on. Our membership development program is a pilot. Our ritual is a pilot. Our VP of comms is doing a couple pilots for nationals. So we have a lot of things that are very labor intensive, but the youth of the executive board and their motivation is really, really pushing all that through. And I think it's going to make it succeed. I think it's going to make it succeed and go very well. I've talked to older members about how they perceive the executive board going so far, and they're all in the same boat as me of amazed, and they're kind of in agreement that this is probably the best executive board this chapter has ever seen, even though it may be one of the youngest, and even though it may be only 2 months in. The amount of energy and motivation that I have seen, that older members have seen, it's really astonishing us. So the young men on the executive board, I say young men even though they're like 2 years younger than me. They're doing amazing things right now as we speak, but they already have planned to go far beyond that. And I think their youth is really a huge benefit, because a lot of these guys are already thinking about running again, thinking about their next position, some even chapter president. One individual has a hard set goal of going to Tragos, and he's got 3 years of college left. So he's already shooting for the moon. A lot of these guys love SIGEP as is, and it's just so refreshing for me to see, because it reminds me a lot of myself back when I was a sophomore, back when I was a junior. But these guys are leagues above me, leagues and miles above me.
Wow.
So I'm very optimistic. I'm not cautiously optimistic. I'm very optimistic about these guys, because they've had a couple challenges to jump through in their first couple months already, but they've dealt with them quickly and efficiently, and they've immediately moved on to, all right, let's get back on track here. Long story short, or everything in review, this executive board, in my eyes, even though they may be very young, that's 100% a benefit to these guys right now, due to their energy, motivation, and really their long-term plans. Because with any luck and a dash of magic, the freshmen should see the new house when it's built before they graduate.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's a big deal to a lot of them, is that they will physically be able to, when they graduate, see part of a legacy that they built. So a lot of words again, but a lot of words are kind of needed to answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, that's some seriously high praise. I know. I think we talked about it a little on the last, probably a couple episodes ago, but there was some worry among the alumni about how young the board was coming in, and we knew we were going to have to take on some more mentorship and be able to help with some of that. And obviously, our mentorship program, is going very well, and it's being led very well. But those are very reassuring words that you gave. And puts more. I mean, I obviously have met with like Andy, my mentor for comms, and he has come in with lots of fantastic ideas, and it's great to see already. So,
and you probably see that a lot within Andy, because he's a great example of that youth and that motivation. But like I said, they have had challenges, right? It's not all been rainbows, butterflies, and kittens, but they've they've looked at these challenges, they've gone for help, like they've asked me to come in and help, and I put in some work to help out and reassure them that things are going to be all right. They've gone to alumni, like you said, so even though some things aren't going as planned or did not go as planned, they they were able to handle it without just saying, "Oh, got to give up." It's, something's
Yeah.
happening. Go out and, I don't know, just leave for 2 days and then deal with it later, or pass it on to someone else. No, a lot of these guys have taken ownership of any problems that come around. So um,
Yeah.
I do
Sure.
want to say that it hasn't been all perfect, but like I said, I'm very optimistic with this executive board.
So it's good you're pretty optimistic. What do you want to see from them? What do you think they can still do? What do you think they can still achieve?
So when you say C, do you mean like as the executive, just specifically the executive board, or kind of the chapter as a whole?
Let's go with the entire chapter. The chapter itself is still works. I mean, still builds up the exec board. There's still a lot that the chapter can do that the exec board cannot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So from the chapter, as I kind of talked about earlier, I'm taking a little bit more active role with the chapter as well. And what I want to see from the chapter overall is, I'm going to try and foster my relationship with them as much as possible, and I'm hoping that that gets returned to me, right? Not everyone's gonna want to talk to me 24/7. It's just like being in the chapter period, right? You're gonna have people that you talk to every time you visit. You're gonna have some people that um, may just say hi and go off doing what they're doing. But um, what I want to see from the chapter is the chapter counselor chapter relationship really turn into something very, very tight and beneficial. And we're already working on that as we speak. I've given examples already of it, but I want to be able to serve the rest of the chapter, not just the rest of the executive board. So that's the first thing I want to see, is our relationship at least really take off. The second thing I want to see is a continued, um, and this is really the most important thing, but the second thing that came to mind is I want to see a continued culture of striving for excellence. And by excellence, I don't mean, oh, just achieve the top every single time. No, you raise the bar with every single year. Um, Here's what the last board did. We can do better. Here's what the last board did. Here you can do better. I want to see that at committee level. Here's what the last committee was able to do. Let's do better. And hopefully from a big chapter level of, hey, that we as a chapter accomplished this last year, right? We won homecoming. We had so many brothers in student governance. We had this GPA, right? But we can do better this year, and here's why. And that culture is very heavily embedded in our chapter, and I'm not worried about it going anywhere whatsoever. But like we were talking about earlier, Kirby was in this position for 10 years. In 10 years, you're gonna have 3 generations of SIGEPs run through here. So that is something that I would like to see from the chapter throughout my term, and beyond, right? I don't know how many years I'm going to be here. I could be here till I retire. Um, but one of my main goals is to continue that chapter culture of striving for excellence. The last thing I want to see from the chapter is I want to see everyone that signs a bid and graduates a SIGEP have fun. And having fun can be many different things for many people. For me, it was being on the executive board, being involved, seeing people's successes, and growing myself as a leader. For some people, it's developing lifelong friendships, it's going to those programming events. For some people, it's quite simply getting out of their comfort zone, right? Maybe previously they only had 2 or 3 friends and really didn't talk to people a lot. Um, I want to see a chapter that has something beneficial and fun for every single member. And we've done a very good job of doing that since I've been in the chapter. Um, I'm sure you guys will agree. We've had a lot of different men walk through our doors, but everyone who has graduated at least stayed and enjoyed their time in SIGEP for something, at least one thing. Some of us many, many, many more, especially those that come back like us three. I'm sure we had countless memories and things that we enjoyed. But I think that's the main reason I wanted to volunteer too, is because I had such a great SIGEP experience. I want to see SIGEP give that experience for men for decades to come, right? Hopefully far beyond my lifetime, because it's the one thing that can be constant within our chapter, and it's all right if it's constant, because as long as we are providing experiences that are fun, beneficial to undergraduate men, we're accomplishing our mission statement. So those are, and just thinking about it kind of on the fly, those are the three things I really want to see from the chapter. Everything else is kind of small and smaller points, but from a broad picture, those are the three main ones.
Ian, I got to tell you, this has been phenomenal just to listen to you. Hearing you talk so passionately about the undergrads is just kind of having me in awe right now. Like, it's not even as like an awe, like, oh my God, but awe as in like, you really have put your heart into this, and it really does show. That is something so phenomenal. And I guess I feel like I've known you for your most of your SIG up career. Also your undergraduate working career as well. But I think that, no, I feel like I know when you really do have your eyes set on that, and this is definitely something, and it's so phenomenal to see that, because I know when you do that, you're going to succeed, and this is going to succeed very well for however long you're in this. This is phenomenal to see.
Thank you, Dom. You're not tired of me yapping already?
No, honestly, like, I'm sitting here in silence just agreeing like this is a presentation. Like, this, you're really phenomenal at just talking and rolling with it. You know, we both suffer from that same symptom.
We call that professional BS in the industry, Dom.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know, you said you weren't wise earlier, and now you're dropping all this knowledge on everybody. So
knowledge,
you're a very wise man. Knowledge.
That's a throwback.
No, I mean, no, like I said though, I mean, I'm in the same boat that Dom kind of is. Like I told you, like, you're one of the only people that I could see that was going to be a perfect fit for this, and to be able to hear all of the information that you're sharing now, like, it's just it's mind blowing. So, you know, you're gonna do phenomenal things. We're excited to see where you go. I think you've put some reassurance into a lot of people about the state of the chapter and kind of the direction that it's going in. And like I said, for those that like don't get to hear like the day-to-day stuff about it, they just kind of see stuff, like, that's all fantastic kind of information to hear. So you know, they're going in a good direction, and they've got some good leadership in you to help guide them that way.
It's not just me too. I want to make that abundantly clear that there's a fantastic base of alumni and volunteers right now that are also supporting me. Right, Kirby literally just messaged me today and asked how the chapter counselor role was going. Okay, he took me out to eat, kind of as a small transition, but he's still checking in with me after. Right. Baker usually messages me every once in a while, and we chat up. Anytime that something happens with the AVC that Jurgis wants me to know, he's very prompt. Or if I have something I want to ask, it's very prompt. So it's not just, I want to make it abundantly clear that it's not just me, and this isn't all just my efforts. A lot of it is other people behind the scenes that have helped me at some point, told me something, mentored me at some point, and now I'm simply giving that back. Right. And you two are an extension of that, not only because I knew you well in undergrad, and Dom essentially got me a job in college, but, you know, you're giving me this avenue to kind of not only personally reflect on the last couple months, but also get my face out and name out to the people who may have never seen me. So thank you guys again for this podcast. I'm so glad it's still going. I've watched every single episode. I promise you, I have watched every single episode. So, and I've been
do a quiz of that.
And I marketed
the episode.
How many views
does Austin's video have?
Which one?
Dom's had more views than mine.
Actually, I think I have the most views. I think it's also because it was the first episode.
I think
not
so
because it's me. I will never toot my own horn enough for that. But I think it has like 100 something. Host fight.
No, Dom's way better at telling stories than I am. I already know that. His episode was good.
Again, we call that professional BSing.
Essentially. But yeah, I know. I mean, we were very excited to have you on. You know, we're planning on getting Nick Kirby on here in either the next one or the one right after it to reflect on his time with it and So hopefully that will be. I mean, well, that will be a good episode. Not hopefully, like hopefully it will get on soon. But we're excited to do that as well. But before we go, Dom, do you have any other kind of questions you want to ask Ian? Or
Will you allow the undergrads to come to your house as chapter counselor and play pinball?
I've already
I need
done.
to
I
know
did
that
that
for.
before I was chapter counselor. For those of you that don't know, I live quite literally 5 minutes away from Apocalypse Paintball. So the undergrads, before I was chapter counselor, okay, we'll have that asterisk on there. Before I heavily encouraged them to make it an alumni event, um, I was already planting those seeds when I was an undergrad. So I had about 8 of them stay over and spend the night. So they didn't have to wake up at 5 a.m. the next day. They could wake up at 7:30 comfortably. So I've already had them over, right? And I have friends over every once in a while. I've already been talking to brothers that um, are moving back to the area. Like Seth is going to be coming back to the area next semester. So I've already been talking to him about meeting up. I live very close to several alumni. Um, I have a game night with Robbie and John Oakley and Will Michaels every single week, so I get to reconnect with brothers there. Um, so I've had a lot of brothers at my house already, and I practically have a red door painted on there. Not yet, but the undergrads even joked about it yesterday of like, yep, we're stopping by Ian's house and we're painting a red door. Guess what? You can't say no to us
Love
anymore.
that.
So, but yes, I'll have them. I currently only have one, so I can only accommodate 4 people at a time. But we'll see what the timeline is with me getting more. But I'm more focused on home improvement right now.
Makes
Now that
sense.
I'm actually have some disposable income, quote unquote.
Quote unquote, yeah.
All right, so basically, just show up to Ian's house whenever you want. Is what I.
You
got
heard
out
him.
of that.
You heard him.
Alrighty, well, Ian, thank you again for coming on. It was, it's been a long time coming since you came on that Ruck episode. Like, we wanted to get you back on, and we just needed to get into a rhythm of things and find a time to do it. And this was perfect for it. So, before we go, do you have anything that you want to plug?
Yeah, if you're an alumni, and you're on the AVC and you see a name that's an undergrad, see if you can message them on Facebook if you have them, or if you go to any chapter events, right? Try to get at least contact info of 1 or 2 guys, because I promise you that getting to know the undergrads now is one of my favorite things, right? I've been in the chapter for 4 years, and every time someone new came in, they were a new member, and that was exciting. But every time I meet a new SIGEP as an alumni, I get that same excitement, but tenfold, because now that I have more experience seeing it, I look at new members, and I did this with recruitment last cycle. I look at new members, and I envision where they could be in 3 years. Great example of that would be Ryan Bergman. I bid him and another individual, and I remember thinking this guy is going to be on the executive board and he's going to do fantastic things. And he's already on member development, and like I said, he's working on that pilot and he's really passionate about it. And to see someone who just came to college, and I partially introduced to SIGEP, and to see him so passionate about it, it's one of the best feelings on the planet. Of I had this experience and now I'm able to share it and um, allow other people to give it. So that's my best advice if you're an alumni. If you're not volunteering for the Wisconsin Theta chapter, what are you doing? If if you graduated from another chapter, just drop a line to the AVC, because we have spots open for every volunteer, even if you'd rather just work with the chapter, kind of like a role like I do. Um, we have 2 amazing faculty fellows who very selflessly give a lot of time to the chapter. And if you're not an alumni or you're not involved with Wisconsin Theta too, we got spot for that. A lot of the good things I've been saying, they can be done by anyone, and there are roles that will pay dividends on your investment. So it's a great way to get involved, and you will impact the lives of many young college men. So that is the one plug I would like to say.
Perfect. Love it. Yeah, we have a lot of different balls rolling on stuff in the AVC, and it's like the perfect time to come in because we've just been doing a bunch of new stuff. So, I want to plug real quick. We have in the past like couple of weeks, we actually created like a LinkedIn group for the Wisconsin Beta Boys.
I'm
all
on there.
volunteers too. Yeah,
I'm getting
Ian's on there. I think Dom's on there now.
I'm finally on there because you added me late.
Yeah. Well, I sent you an invite and got lost, but so that's a
it got lost in the
it
tubes.
got lost apparently. Dom said it got lost, but
Yeah,
that's just
I sure
another
did.
that's just another avenue that's we wanted to create to kind of connect people, so if you're on LinkedIn and want to be a part of that group to connect with undergrads who are looking for internships and jobs, look it up. I think it's like a public group or like a semi-public group. Like you can look it up and then just join. And I just didn't accept it. So cool. Well, again, Ian, thank you for coming on. You're a fantastic guest. We always love talking with you, and we'll definitely have to do this might have to be like a yearly thing, like just do a checkup with the counselor and see how things are going. That'd be kind of fun.
That'd be fun. Thank you guys a lot for doing this. This podcast has been a lot of fun to not only be on the recording end twice, but to see all the people that you guys bring in and all the wonderful stories and kind of preserving our chapter's history. So thank you guys so much. I hope this continues far beyond my tenure as chapter counselor.
Well, that's the plan right now, but we just need to keep getting people on to do it. So, alrighty. Well, you guys have a good night, and we'll see you guys for the next episode.
Take care, guys.